What's the YouTube link?
I'm about to post it. All right, fellas, we are live. All right, okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna send the link.
1, 2, 3.
Bet. All right, y'all. Welcome back. Welcome back. We got the Family Style Live podcast, and we're in full force today. We got our boy Tech joining us today. What's good, bruh?
What's up? What's up? Thank you for having me.
Of course, bro. It's always a pleasure. Of course, we got big body Rob Rooks.
What's up? How y'all doing?
We're doing great, sir. And of course, we got DeAndre Dre Graves.
Hello. What's up, y'all?
Of course, it's your boy Denzel. Yeah, we got a jam-packed session for you guys. With, plenty of stuff's going on. Pretty much the news is being updated on a daily basis. There's plenty of information that we could touch on. And just kind of get started off, like, what are some of like the local headlines? I know, Rob, there was something going on with people are not familiar with Kansas City. There's Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and the Paseo. So what's going on with that?
Well, in most American cities, there's a Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, except for like I think Kansas and in Arizona, and maybe a few other places. But recently, a couple months ago, in Kansas, there was like I don't know if it was a surprise petition or what. Well, I just woke up one day and they were like, "Yeah, we're changing the Paseo to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard." That caused a fucking firestorm, and all the white people around here, them niggas went out and had like an emergency vote like a week later to change it back to the Paseo. But by that time, city workers were already putting up like Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard around the city. So if you drive around some streets in Kansas City, in the Kansas City area between like Troost and I don't know the other street, but downtown Kansas City in the old Paseo, which ironically leads into the Negro Leagues Hall of Fame baseball museum. So like it would make sense to change it to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard anyway. But if you drive around some of those streets now, you'll either see Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard or the Paseo. And there's a whole debacle, and citizens like in light of the George Floyd protests, people are taking down racist monuments and stuff, and there's nobody more racist than J.C. Nichols. But there's J.C. Nichols Parkway that leads into the plaza, which he actually built. So it makes sense, but it's only like, I think, 0.9 miles long, and it was quote unquote minuscule. And they had a petition to change that to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, but it's not nearly as long as the Paseo and not as significant. So like that's just a whole I don't know. It's a bigger deal than I apparently thought it was, but that shit's been going on in Kansas City for like past 2 months. And that led me into even thinking, because I didn't even know who the hell JC Nichols was, like before this even happened. But like that led me into looking up who the hell he is, which is a whole story in itself. But yeah, on top of the civil rights stuff, people painting Black Lives Matter on the roads and shit. Everybody's trying to get things changed, monuments tore down, NASCAR's saying no more Confederate flags in the sport that literally made Confederate flags like a homestay. But that's what we got to lead off with.
I mean, why you think it's such a big deal of people protesting changing a street to after maybe considered one of the greatest leaders, if not civil rights leaders of all time? Like, why would that be such a big deal?
Well, I know it's a big deal because most Martin Luther King Jr. boulevards, like I said, there's a bunch of them around the country in like just about every major city, and most of them are notorious for being like hotbeds of crime and poverty and stuff, and that's purposefully done because of redlining and shit like that. But you can't get white people to admit that, so they just say, "Oh, we don't want it to go down in the crime area," but like anybody who's been to Kansas City, the Paseo is literally right next to the Truce Wall, which is a high crime area in itself, and it's currently being gentrified. So I think that's what really set the white people off on this shit right now, because the Paseo kind of straddles the Truce Wall and Brookside to the west, and Brookside's like a really expensive neighborhood. There's $1 million homes and that shit, and I live in the Waldo area, which is just south of Brookside and to the west of the Paseo and Truce. And like my area, like Mackenzie's grandma, she was like, "Oh, that used to be the hood," and it's like, yeah, it's not the hood anymore. There's like lesbian couples walking their dogs and shit around here, and like every week and a half, maybe you might hear some gunshots from the far east, but like it's being gentrified fast. Like I'm maybe. Like when I walk my dog, I think I'm maybe like one of 2 or 3 black people that live around here, and like old white people think this is still like the hood, like unless they come over here and like visit. But it's I can see why they didn't want to change it, but like it doesn't make sense either way you say it, because it's like I don't know why they couldn't just say like they could make a special street name and be like, "Oh, Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in the Paseo." Like it's just a long ass street name. Everybody knows you can keep both legacies. And excuse me, it only makes sense because if you follow the Paseo going north from where I'm at, I'm in 75th and Main. If you follow the Paseo going north, it literally leads right into the Negro Leagues Hall of Fame baseball. So like, what more sense would it be than to change that into Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard? And then if you follow the Paseo south, like going back towards my house, there's like a whole contingent of black neighborhoods and stuff that are still like thriving and holding strong right now. I wouldn't say thriving, but like they're still there, and like the people who are there and own their houses are like making it look nice and stuff. And there's all these initiatives going on to like help better this part of KC anyway. So it's
Yeah, it's
just
definitely getting gentrified for sure.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on what you're talking about, Rob, because I see what you're talking about. So from basically a historical standpoint, obviously we get the reason why it should be named Martin Luther King Jr. So I'm seeing what I'm getting from what you're telling me, and this will probably lead to Caleb probably could give more of an explanation. It's because of the people gentrifying the neighborhood. They don't want that name to be associated, because usually Martin Luther King Jr. boulevards are known for being for communities in poverty or communities that are not as wealthy.
Yeah, that's a part of it. And then like just white people in period have a problem with
Change.
there being a Martin Luther King like they don't want to live on the Martin Luther King Boulevard. Like I don't want to get shit mailed to my house and have to write Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard on it. Just like what the president's going through now on Black Lives Matter Plaza. Like anything gets mailed to that nigga, oh, Black Lives Matter. You gotta read that shit every day on the mail. Like, but it's the optics. It's just there's always petty shit like that going on. And like I didn't like I'm saying, I heard about this literally one morning out the blue. Like I woke up, turned on news, they were like, "Oh, they're changing the name of the Paseo to Martin Luther King Boulevard." And then like literally 6 hours later, there's white people picketing and shit and trying to call up a surprise vote. And I'm like, damn, is that big of a deal? Like, and it should be slightly embarrassing for being one of the last cities and the last major places that have a Martin Luther King Boulevard in the first place. But that also leads into J.C. Nichols' legacy and how he literally was a city planner and how he constructed these neighborhoods. But
yeah, Dre,
Yeah.
Caleb, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was saying, yeah, it was a strategy that was actually adopted by JC with the zoning that he had created, and kind of went from there. And his whole plan was to kind of divide up the communities and make it to where, I want to say, I think it was Jews that I saw, and obviously African Americans, they cannot live in his property. So it's just changing everything. It's updating, and people don't want to see that. It's exactly what Rob was saying when it comes to Martin Luther King Way, stuff like that. So it's just I get it. Like, I get it, but I personally think it's just the issue with change, and that's the problem. We need to get rid of that stuff. And so, I mean, if you really have a big deal with it, I mean, I think we should be raising flags at that.
Definitely. And Caleb, I mean, just for you, you invest in a lot of property around Kansas City. What are your thoughts as far as that? And I know you can kind of see on both sides.
I get it. I mean, there is negative associations with Martin Luther King Boulevard throughout the United States. It's I mean, it's really associated with impoverished neighborhoods, a lot of crime, things of that nature. And I mean, if you're putting your actual money into a neighborhood and you're changing the ecosystem and creating something that it wasn't before, I think that, I mean, it would be something that it would affect your bottom line. So I get it. But I mean, I guess let me ask you this: why is it so important to change it to Martin Luther King Boulevard? Like, I want to understand.
Because he's a
No, not necessarily.
in
Not
his
necessarily
death,
him,
he's been made a legend in his death. And
No, I get that.
if you go around from state to state, there's certain street names that are literally in every state, and his should be one of them because of his legacy of
But we do-
literally changing the United States. But
we
like
do have Martin Luther King Boulevard, though, don't we? Like in Kansas City and in Kansas. I mean, in both sides.
no.
Okay.
That's why this was being done, but it's hella late because every other state did this shit like almost literally right after his death. But like a part of the whole negative stereotype of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevards is because when they did that, the city planners of that time that were hella racist relegated during their redlining and stuff, relegated poor people to those neighborhoods. And where there's poor people, there's crime. And where there's crime, there's strife. And then when you redline something, you let it just fall apart. So
Yeah.
like it's kind of intellectually lazy on their part because this could be Kansas City's time to, shift the narrative of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevards. Like if they change it and they're actively gentrifying it, and then you pull up to Kansas City, you roll down Martin Luther King Boulevard, you see all these wealthy homes and shit and white people living on it. And you're like, oh, it's not that bad after all. Like, but it's just the name association they don't want. And
I mean, I think that culture is so deep rooted; it's so hard to get away from that association. So I mean,
100%.
I just like I get now why people are upset about it, and it makes sense. But it's like, man, I don't know. I think that a lot of people are using this opportunity to kind of hop on and do different things. So whoever put that to the ballot has a motive and initiative. That they're trying to use this platform to get to whatever they're trying to get to. So.
well, that's the
I don't
point.
know,
I get
man.
what you're saying. People keep on trying to be like, oh, why do we have to change things? Why do we have to change things? That's the whole point of even doing society and making technology and progressing.
We have to
is
start
changing.
changing. We got to start
Yeah.
doing something different,
And
Something's gotta
then
start
also,
moving.
it's like these people have negative legacies and stuff. Like on the link I sent you guys, it's like first paragraph, Jesse Clyde Nichols was not nationally renowned city planner in Kansas City from the first decade of the 20th century, long time ago, whose
Yeah.
legacy has come under intense scrutiny for his practices of racial redlining and segregation. Period.
Yeah.
And
I
we
mean-
give that praise. We worship that. Like we acknowledge that as a good thing to
And
be
I get
monumented.
that. I get that people like you can't just tear down people's contributions to society because like he made the plaza and shit like that, but it's like you can't start separating like, oh, let's ignore the bad stuff because he did this good stuff, just like we do with artists and stuff. Because like R. Kelly, he made fucking I Believe I Can Fly, but he also ran a sex cult, and like so it's like where are you gonna draw your lines at? But that's just where we're at in society. Like with the NASCAR shit, we don't want racist Confederate flags in the sport because it's limiting some of the participation of other people in like our audience. Like NASCAR had the lowest viewer. NASCAR had its lowest number of viewers last year than it had ever, and they see that shit. But it's like, how do you get more viewers? You get the pop culture onto it. But how do you do that? You stop offending them. Like, so everybody's trying
They're
to
doing
change.
a great job of that.
Yeah, but everybody,
I mean,
you need to
get
change
that,
for
like,
the
everybody's
positive.
trying to change. Yeah, but they're trying to change for their own motives. You get what I'm saying? So I think there's a lot of things.
Yeah, but look, you're talking about it's people's own motives against a negative context.
Oh, no, I get it. I think change needs to happen and things like that.
People keep on real. Oh, white people have feelings too. White people have feelings too.
No,
Damn right. But their feelings were to keep black people as slaves and to say fuck them and cut them out of society. So you keep on trying to be like, oh, there's both. Try to both sides of this shit, but one side is trash and the other side is like, I want to represent myself in this culture too. I want to see myself in the society. I want to see myself reflected as a part. How can you create an American identity if you want to cut people out of it? And you want people to stand and praise your flag and sing the song and shit, but you don't want to treat them like full Americans. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I agree with you on that.
I think, well, as far as Caleb saying, I 100% agree. Definitely, we're seeing it across the country, statues, different monuments of oppression, slavery. You've seen the Robert E. Lee statues get torn down. You even talk about tearing down the Abe Lincoln statue that has him petting a slave. Like, all those type of things need to come down. I think as far as what Caleb's saying is, like, they're changing it, but I get the motive to doing it, but some people are using these for their own benefit. I think that's what he's saying. Like, in this case, yeah, they could change it to Martin Luther King, but is it something that's really going to honor him per se, just to get that street change per se?
Or actually bring the change to what the whole point.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying. I can see what Caleb's saying about that too, because then it's like, all right, so, and then also it's like, yeah, we want to make sure we're making that known that we're not standing for these things, but obviously there's something that's going to be forced.
I feel like people are just trying to trend right now. You know what I mean? Corporations trying to trend.
Of course.
Cities, like that's all they're doing. And I mean, I don't know, man. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, how are they helping the culture, or not just the culture? How are they helping the people? You know what I mean? That are affected from this. I mean, because that racism still exists right now. There's a lot of practices that are that are instilled in institutions to prevent, like, minorities to get to certain places. You know what I mean? I mean, you look at investment banking and look at how many African Americans are in investment banking. It's a very low percentage. Like different fields, different opportunities that would, generally is just promoted to a lot of people. It's not, to those groups. So I don't know, man. You know what I mean? I think that's like how, like, so I'm seeing like banks. Bank of America has pledged $1 billion, and other banks are, you know what I mean? But it's like, I feel like even that is just a front. It's like they're saying that, but they really need to break out and say, like, hey, where are these things going? How are these directly applying, and how are they helping people? You know what I'm saying? So it's, I don't know. You still see like you know what I mean? Being a minority right now, there's still a lot of people that can't get business loans. They can't get X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? There's just like all those things that, I don't know. So yeah.
What's your argument against this? Because it has to start somewhere.
No, there's no argument. I love it. I think I see it, but I'm just saying it's like.
And you understand the argument in your subconscious.
Yeah.
You're talking about deep infrastructure and like legislative changes and stuff. But like, once you see it in the optics first, and in your everyday words and your everyday views of people, then it can bleed over into actual, like, because what you're talking about changing is going to take a lot more than just slapping a street name or painting the Black Lives Matter on a road. And that's going to take like a whole organizational movement in the political sphere.
Let me ask you this. Do you think a black man will ever look the same, like in terms of value to value, or just measure as a white person? Like, let me ask you this, like, just whether like whatever they implement, do you think that that's gonna get to where it's like equality?
I don't think so.
You know what I mean? I don't think so.
Not within like it's projected by like 2050, like the net worth of a
African
black
Americans supposed to go to
household.
zero.
Yeah,
Zero.
and
Yeah.
that's like over here. We live in a capitalistic society. That's measured over here and everything. But what it's gonna take is like a whole worldwide shift
Yeah.
of Africans. But we keep getting fought on every level, even within our own community. We gotta fight the same niggas. We're like, hey, you got to care about your own shit and take care of it. And then like anytime we talk about black empowerment, they try to say, oh, you're being separatist and you're being discriminatory to white people. It's like, well, where the fuck was that attitude when white people did this shit to us? Like it's the same argument. Just like when you talk about black empowerment, they try to say you're being violent and you're being divisional. And it's like, well, I have to in order to carve my own way into this thing. Otherwise, you guys are gonna keep saying like, "Oh, how do we get black men to care about their own security and their own financial well-being and want to own a house? How do you own a house? You got to be able to
This is the thing, though. Like I want to add to what you're saying. Like, you know, we live in a capitalistic economy country, right? In order for capitalism to work, there needs to be poor people. There needs to be average people. That's the only way it will work, you know? So, like, I really believe that they're not doing anything to help us at all. You get what I'm saying? When I say us, like us as in a mass, right? They're not really.
Now, Caleb,
you know what I'm saying?
Like 5 podcasts ago, when I was fighting you about, you were like, "Oh, capitalism is the best thing."
It is. It is. I agree with it. I love it. I'm for it. I'm not affected by this shit. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about as a mass. But
now,
you know,
do you understand? China does a mixed economy.
Yeah.
From communism, and they participate in capitalism.
Yep.
And the reason they can do that because they have more of a shared identity.
Yeah.
Now we keep on talking about who's American over here and who's not, and you have to hyphenate this. And are you a legal alien? Whatnot. It should just be: are you an American? And can we take care of you like an American? Can we provide you the American standard of life? But we don't have that. And like you said, in order for capitalism to thrive, somebody has to be cut out on the bottom. They used to do that because they literally stole land from Native Americans, and then they stole black people to work for free labor. So you cut out like 50% of your cost right there.
Yeah.
And you had all this. That's why this country blew up out of nowhere. This country's only 275 years old. And we battling like China and Russia and shit, and they've been around for thousands of years. Like,
yeah, that free labor.
I think you just opened up a bigger debate because I've struggled with this thought myself of is there a utopia or society I could live in where there's not going to be poor people? And I honestly don't think there is, because it's the difference between people. The thing what we want is the opportunity, equal opportunity to be successful. And honestly, if you look at anywhere in the world, this is probably the best place you'll have the opportunity to be the best you can if you have the work ethic. Now, is it fair for everybody? No. But if you work hard enough, you can overcome certain stipulations that keep you from getting or reaching success.
100%.
That's the difference. Yes. But 100%. There's no possible way, because you're going to have people that are not going to want to try.
And there's people that just don't try.
They don't. And they shouldn't be having an equal playing field as people that are working hard. I don't believe that. I really don't believe that.
100%.
However, the whole point, to kind of follow up, the whole point still goes into the fact that, like, regardless, if you see me trying, you see me putting in the effort, you see me doing that everybody else is doing, give me my stripes. Don't strip me of my stripes because of my skin color, which is the whole problem that is going on. Like, Black people built this shit. Black people did everything. They need to get the credit that's due. That's all we're saying. That's all. That's what we're saying. So it's like, in order for change to come, acknowledge what Black people have done.
Let me ask you this: how do you acknowledge that? How do you acknowledge? Like, what is that? What does that mean in terms of value? Like, what exactly?
It means first acknowledging the history. Okay, that's one thing this country hasn't done. You acknowledge the history. You stand in front of the National Mall or whatever. You apologize to the African descendants that you dragged over here, and then you give them reparations, which you've given to anybody else who's been through some shit like that.
How do you feel about that, Rob? But how do you feel like an apology? Like, just like, if it's just like forced, I don't want an apology. It's like, give me something I could invest in. Give me some wealth I could build on.
Exactly. That's what apology I'm talking about. It's gonna be reluctant on the part of some people but a formal actual apology comes in the form of reparations.
Yeah.
All the other shit is lip service. All this painting Black Lives Matter on roads and shit. All this wearing kufis and shit on TV and changing street names and tearing down monuments to not piss off black people or saying don't bring your fucking racist ass Confederate flag back. That's just trying to appease the people and get them to stop tearing down buildings and blowing shit up. But it's like an actual acknowledgement comes in the form. That's the reason why white people can't be honest about this shit in the first place, because it creates a legal framework for them to admit what they did. That's why people keep on reporting their ass to the United Nations. But it's like the United Nations has no teeth. They can't come over here and attack America. Like, it's going to take an actual acknowledgement, a legal acknowledgement in the form of reparations. And that's how you would even begin. Like Caleb said, how do you begin to see yourself create wealth to the same standard of white people? That's what it's going to take.
So,
and that's what we keep on trying to do by doing this little shit, like tearing down racist figureheads and changing names so you could see it in the optics and it embeds in your subconscious. So every day, instead of thinking like, oh, J.C. Nichols Parkway, and you don't even think about who J.C. Nichols is, you see, oh, Martin Luther King Boulevard. Who's Martin Luther King? What did he do? Why did he do it? Why did it have to be done? Like, it has to start somewhere. But
I mean, I agree with you. I think reparation would be the way, right? I think that's like how you they really speak that volume, right? And who is the founder of BET, Robert L. Jackson, I think, something like that. Anyways, so he had a proposal. It was a $14 trillion proposal. I think it broke out to like $380,000 per person. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that would significantly add value to people's life, or do you think that it's going to be the same problem as a person that gets a lottery, that wins a lottery, and 9 out of 10 times they're at that money? Because 360 grand is not a lot of money.
I think personally,
it's a lot, but it's not.
If they do reparations, to follow up with what you're saying, I feel like they should all have a financial advisor assigned to them that the government will accommodate for. They don't have to worry about, to show them what to do with their money, how to invest it, how to say whatever they need to do to make sure it's being sustained and actually building upon what they're given. Not they're just going out and just blowing it, because that happens a lot of times. People just get a lot of money because they're not literate with finances. So that's the biggest problem in the Black community. We don't understand these things. And so when people are trying to pass down this knowledge, trying to gain wealth, they don't know how, because as we know with the history, we haven't been given those tools to be able to provide it for our children.
Yeah. Sticks and stones, baby.
All right. Well, the government, the 116th Congress has the HR 40 proposal for African Americans Act, and they just need to go back and review the Reconstruction period after the Civil War, when they offered the African American slaves, they offered them 40 acres and a mule, and then they reneged on that whole agreement as they were giving white people land for free out in the West that they were stealing from the Native Americans. But in the modern sense, since it would be hard to just even figure this shit out, and that's why they keep punting it down the road, because the more they keep on putting it off, the harder it gets to even hash this stuff out. Reparations needs to come in the form of mixed, like money, like a lump sum of money and land, because land is like real estate's the quickest way to.
But that land will never happen though. They'll never give you that. They'll print money. They'll never give you land though. Because that's
exactly, well, that's the attitude, not with that fucking attitude. That's the reason why this HR 40 commission is in process. And that's why we need more African Americans and people of color in the government to hold them accountable for that shit. And to quit saying stuff like, oh, get the money, like take the money and run. And even with the money thing, like there'll have to be African Americans, like what'd you say, Frederick Smith offered this, or Frederick Robbins, what's his name?
I think it was, let me see, it's Robert L. Jackson, or I think so.
Yeah, well,
it's the founder of BT.
People like him and Robert Smith.
Johnson.
Yeah. People like him would have to create like there's other financial black networks that I've seen, but it would just take black professionals in banking and stuff to put together plans for how people are going to use the money and how people can grow money more importantly. But it's not a single patch to anything. There's no single initiative to be taken. Like this, we were attacked on all fronts. Like I was talking about in the last podcast. You don't enslave a person or have a war against a person on one front. Like it's gonna take a lot of stuff. Like they need more initiatives for education. We need to fix education, period. Like not just for black people. Like obviously this country is struggling with education, and we gotta teach people how fucking germs work and shit, and how viruses spread. But there just needs to be a whole systemic shift in America. Like America's broken. That's how we got Trump in the first place. And when people are fighting over like how to do it, instead of just going out and like trying to get together and get on board with the plan to do it, now we're stagnated. And this is what countries like Russia and China want. And then we also got to take
even good. Huh? But when was America even great?
Exactly. But we've been trying to make it great. You guys just talked about how this is like, this is the greatest society for capitalism to thrive in and to better yourself, and it's trash as fuck. So it's like, damn, if we're this good, but not really, like imagine how great we could be. And that's what people were trying to do. But we're infighting with ourselves, and then we have outside agitators too. Like I said on last time, like we got to contend with like China and Russia, who I think that dude just got fired, but the Security Council dude for the United States said like, oh, Russia and China are going to try to take the opportunity to meddle in these elections again. And like, we got to realize like the world's not sweet. Like you got thrown into the fire, and like everything is trying to tear you down, even from the inside out. And you just got to get on board with the plan and make it happen.
Word up. And, obviously, with any of these changes, you got to start within the Black community itself. And it's like in certain areas like Chicago, even Kansas City. Kansas City is setting a record pace for homicide this year. And that's just so sad to hear. Rob, what is it like just being like the whole feel of the community just dealing with so much death outside of coronavirus already in the Black community?
Well, with Kansas City, it's weird because, like, I don't know if you guys looked at that. What is it? It's like KMBC5. They have a homicide chart for all the homicides that go on. Mm-hmm. And just like we were talking about with the J.C. Nichols Parkway, and he built the Truce Wall, they mapped all those crimes that go from like the Truce Wall, and they literally confined it to like a 30-block radius. And it's mostly a Black community. And like 80% of those homicides over there are like Black people, and 80% of them go unfounded. And like, I don't even think the cops really look that hard for them, because it's like there's Black community leaders around here that are like, yo, like y'all keep killing each other and you're doing what they want. And then they're gentrifying this part of their neighborhood anyway. But I mean, there's white people that get killed too. Like I was just reading an article yesterday in Sedalia, which is like western Kansas. It's far from there. But in Sedalia, some sheriff officer shot this white lady, and she was unarmed and shit. And then now he doesn't have body cam footage or whatever, and they're investigating his ass. And it's like everybody's suffering from like police violence. And KCPD is like notoriously racist, and on top of the city policies, as we talked about with J.C. Nichols, like they relegated this impoverished community to these like 30 blocks. And if you look on the KSHB homicide tracker, like you could see it, they mapped it out. You could just click on them, and it's like mostly gun violence. I mean, maybe some drugs and shit. They keep on saying gang violence, but like I roll around here as a Black person all the time, and I don't get stopped by any gangs or anything. So I don't know what they're talking about. But there's
sad.
like, yeah, I think it said, what does it say? 87 There's been 87 homicides this year.
So
And,
far.
like, over the past 4 years, Kansas City's averaged like 300, between 300 and 350 deaths. But on in the small print, they don't count the police killings. So like maybe that's even more. But
Right. Like, how do you even, like, with our communities and how they're set up, obviously it's going to take a lot of work, but like, where do you even begin to start to kind of fix the issues of like just the Black community and like just the turmoil, the poverty? Like, where do you begin to start to address those issues? Because obviously, for Black people, everybody's trying to get out the hood. Like, whether you're balling, rapping, going to school, that's always the idea, is to get out of the hood. But we understand the importance of also investing back in our community. So how do you even go about that?
I think the only way like there'll be change, like systematic change, is if there's ownership. Black people don't own anything, right? If you don't own anything, you can't do anything. You know what I mean? So,
well, it's like you don't take care of shit the same. Like if it's not my shit to take care of, like,
yeah, there's no sense of community.
Making it look nice, yeah.
Exactly. Like you see, like, I mean, I don't know. So I think that's the only way, man. I think the only way you could do it is if, like, if they set up programs. I mean, like, they can set up programs. I think, like, I don't know. I think the Black Lives Matter message is getting lost, I feel, in my personal opinion, right? Because there's so many things that are happening, right? Like, police brutality is a big one, right? And yeah, I get it. Like, that's a huge problem, right? And that's a problem that needs to be addressed in different matters, blah, 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 right? And then, but there's a bigger issue than police, you know what I mean? There's so many other things, like, I don't know about you guys, but like, who's killing Black people? Black people are killing Black people, you know what I mean? It's because the problems that we're facing.
Hold on, don't get caught in the black on black crime shit.
I don't mean like that. I don't mean like that.
Where you're
to where you live. I get it. I don't mean like that. But what I'm trying to say is, and like, the reason that crime exists is because it's poverty, right? They don't have the resources. They don't have that opportunity, right? Like, they're killing somebody. Like, I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like,
but it was built to do that. That's why it was there. It was that's the point. Yeah, it's
working as it's designed.
Yeah, it's supposed to do that.
So if I think the only way we could do it is like if you set up systems in which, whether it's in banking, right? That's
wrapping back around to your reparations.
Your point about
that's how you do it. Not the money. You get what I'm saying? I think, like, more than money, if you set up a platform for Black people to succeed, $300,000, guys, it is not a lot of money. You know what I mean? And for a lot of these people, they won't have it. They'll get it and it's gone, right? How many of those people are actually going to invest?
Well, like you said, you were just talking about, you need to set up a system. You don't just throw money at them. You throw money at them within the system that you set up.
That's it. Yeah, that's it, man.
But also, we need to get off this, like, the black church shit, because everybody's like, go to church, blah, blah, blah. Man. It needs to be a secular thing, because the church alienates some people too.
Yeah.
And it needs to be a whole secular thing, and you can, like Dre was talking about, like, get a community, and like, when people get wealthy, because that's been a long-standing thing, people want to get out the hood and shit. But even rappers and stuff have been doing a great job at rebranding that whole argument. Because I know Slim Thug, he'd be posting, like, he went back to his community and bought, like, whole 3 blocks of houses and shit like that. And other rappers other rappers are getting on, like, the whole real estate and stuff like that and rebuilding their community. But it's gonna take like, getting athletes and stuff like that on board. And like, I was cussing people out on Instagram the other day too. I was like, man, why y'all try to get money and then go out and live among these white people that don't fucking want you there? Like, get back. You could win $1 million and then you could buy 16 houses in your own hood instead of trying to buy, like, I think Travis Scott just bought this $23 million mansion. I mean, that's Travis Scott. You can do what you want, and that shit's out in LA. But it's like, imagine what $23 million could have got you in some hood in Texas. Like, you could literally own a fucking county. Like,
exactly.
But it's happening, and now it's brought to our attention, because people back in the 90s weren't talking about shit like this. Like, but it's brought to our attention now, and people know, like, by 2050, like, your shit's projected to be down.
It's gonna
And
go to
there's
zero.
not-
But like, what do you think about these people though? So I feel like the people that are out protesting and doing all this stuff, like they're making the noise now, but I don't think they'll be there 2 months from now, 3 months from now. You know what I mean? When it really matters. And
But
when we're
Caleb,
trying
you
to
also
make-
got to realize, like, this is the American news media,
No, yeah, I get it.
and
yeah.
this is their whole. They have to drive up viewers. They need to drive a contention between somewhere. That's why they
Yeah.
always get some negative aspect of the protesters, and that's only like a small part. And,
I mean,
then, like,
it's not even the protesters. It's like, you know, like different organizations that are taking advantage of this opportunity, you know?
well,
take
yeah,
these-
and then on the
Antifa.
capitalistic side, all these corporations are taking the opportunity to be like, oh, we stand in solidarity with black people and blah blah blah, and we've always been there for you. But like Starbucks is telling people not to wear Black Lives Matter, but y'all can wear Gay Pride Parade, everything. And then like once they get backlash on that, they're like, oh no, black people, like,
It's okay.
yeah, like, oh my bad, like y'all can have your thing, like.
We
But-
got to get back to the humanity thing. Like,
But
it's the people.
There's intellectual black people that realize what that is, because anytime something happens, companies take the opportunity. Like, we know we're in a capitalistic society. If there's the opportunity to drive up awareness for your brand or put that in front of people or slap some
It's
good
manipulation.
cause, yeah.
It's just
but-
financial manipulation. It's control. It's manipulation, in my opinion, and that's what I think. That's why I think that all these people that's investing in all the Black Lives Matter in general, it's just a manipulation. Let's just throw these black people a bunch of money. Let's just throw them some money and see. Go beat somebody. Go do something then.
No, I
Like,
mean that's nice. Like, I mean, Black Lives Matter. It's gonna take money to change this shit, and then
Yes.
that money's gonna have to go towards politicians, because that's the game that our politicians are playing. Like, there's lobbyists and shit like that.
who are they associated with? Who
What do you mean?
The Black Lives Matter to politicians? So are we talking about just like, you know, specific parties? Are we talking about, you know, politicians? Like, who are those political leaders then? Who can step up and actually lead that role? Like, what does that look like then? Because if we're gonna go turn our money over to politicians, then we really need to
Not
do
all
some-
that money is going to go to politicians.
Well,
I'm
no,
saying some
but-
of that money is going to have to go to politicians
in order for
some of the
change to be
things you want
enforced.
done.
That's what we were talking about, though. We want,
But
that
you
change
don't.
enforced.
I don't know what politician in their right mind would want. Oh yeah, I'm supported by Black Lives Matter. Like, they're the ones upholding me. Like, that's not how this game works. Like, you
I
just
don't
take
think
the
so
money.
either.
You be quiet about where you got it from until some reporter asks you flat out, like, hey, we did some investigation.
But it's open,
out you got
so
the
you don't
money.
have to hide it. It's there. Like, you're gonna
Yeah.
see what the donations are, so that's not gonna be an issue.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, everything's
That-
disclosed.
It's all there. So that's not the issue. Like I said, like, it goes back to what we said in the first place. There needs to be some sort of structure with how this money is going to be delegated in order to really enhance the community of black people and the lives that, and just the community of black people, just the community of black people in the areas. When we're talking about fixing up the areas, when we're talking about investing the money, we're talking about education. Can we throw some there in the education primarily? As far as if we're going into
Like,
politics, can we make sure that
prison
we throw it to
reform.
where there's some kind of structure to teach black people to focus on, you know, not even to focus on, but to learn about voting, learn about the candidates. Like, can we figure out the right candidates that need to run? Can we get them, you know, to speak? Can we get them to rise? Like, those are the type of things that we're talking about. Like, everything we say, like government, like, this is the opportunity for black people to actually take a chance to actually step up and represent the black people with this money. And so I'm nervous that we still do throw our money, like Black Lives Matter is going to throw their money to the Democratic Party, which is also manipulating black people, just like the
Yeah.
Republican Party is manipulating white people. It's all the same stuff. So it's just like, there needs to be a change. There needs to be something done that's going to actually bring out the truth, and that we actually focus on doing the right thing for America instead of manipulating people for money and control and power.
That's what America's about.
Hey man, that's true though. It's the unfortunate thing. That
so
is true.
it's just going to be a circle. It's just, we might as well call this a circle. We'll see you in 20 years.
Well, that's the thing. We're like, it's a start. Like, we know what we're fighting. Like, we obviously know we're fighting against racism. We're fighting against, oppression. But obviously, we know the bigger issues: corruption, control. Like, that's why I feel like so many people are supporting the cause. You know, they're like, dang, like, this is the start. Now that's why so many people are so big on, like, you got to keep that fire going, because we can't just stop. Like, okay,
Yeah.
black people, we got reparations. That's what we're hoping it doesn't go to. Like, oh, they're gonna throw some money at us. throw down some monuments, and it's all going to go away. And they're like, back to normal. We don't want that. We want things to change completely. And that's why we got to keep that fire going. That's going to be the tough battle. Like, just to keep
getting
people,
those people. Yeah.
That's why when you're talking about, you know, the NBA players, which we're going to touch on a little bit later, but how they're really big on, like, we don't really want to draw attention away from this. Like, we want to make sure people are still going forward with the movement. And Dre, you were touching about the Black Lives Matter, just money already. And there was this interesting article, I read it too, and I'm glad you posted it, that GoFundMe had to freeze $350,000 in contributions after people supported the wrong, I guess, organization. It was unaffiliated with Black Lives Matter. So people were just donating. They're like, oh, yeah, Black Lives Matter.
Somebody threw a Black Lives Matter page together and was like, here, donate here. And they caught it like 350 grand in. But Black Lives Matter, the actual organization, which is ran by Act Blue, which, like you said, is a Democratic organization, but these are democratic principles that Black Lives Matter is fighting for. They've raised like $22 or $23 million. And like people were asking, oh, what are you going to do with that? And they had to release what I thought was an obvious fact on people's mind, but they're like, you guys just gave us $23 million. We're not going to go out and spend that shit in a day. Like they were providing like water and medical supplies for like protesters and shit like that. And then like they're sitting on the rest of the money until we come up with a plan, like people were talking about, like, but people were mad, like, oh, what is the money going for? And it's like, I better not see those motherfuckers spend $23 million in a day on some bullshit. Like, you got this money, that's enough to run some grassroots campaign. But I'm looking at their timeline and shit right now, and like, yeah, if you don't want to donate to the Democratic Party, don't donate to those motherfuckers, because that shit goes to Act Blue. And that's who I donated to the Bernie campaign, and that's who keeps hitting me up for money and shit. I'm like, damn, like, what are y'all doing? But if you want to help them out, you stand for that,
right?
Do it. But if you don't, like, hold your money. Like, nobody's holding, like, asking you where you put your money at. Like, that's just that's the thing between you and you. But
Facts. And man, bro, this has been sad. It was the other day, I think it was because we've been seeing random people being hung in trees as they want to deem them as suicides, which I know Rob feels strong. I know he has a good point to bring up about this, but it was just sad, bro. Seeing people commit suicide in places and they're not even investigating it.
Well, it's like we're protesting the police and shit, and then they're left to police, like they're left to investigate stuff like that, and also investigate themselves when they fuck up and do shit. And then it's like, name the last time anybody ever has heard of any nigga hanging themselves in a public place. Like, maybe hanging themselves at home and committing suicide, you're like, yeah, I'm sure you'll find cases like that, but no nigga ever, especially with a backpack on, like, and his family was expecting him and shit like that. No nigga ever decided, oh, let me hang myself in front of the fire department in City Hall and shit, like broad daylight. Like that shit'll never happen. And then like just the timing of it happening in multiple areas, in notoriously racist areas, because like it happened in Northern California. Everybody knows like Central and Northern California is racist as fuck. Happened in Texas. Happened in Georgia or something. It's like, oh, like that shit's not. And then they gaslight people like, oh, you just committed suicide. And then we're investigating this, but it's like, you motherfuckers botch investigations on yourselves all the time. Or like I said, like we were talking about earlier with the Kansas City homicides and shit, and like 80% of these homicides, when there's black people being killed and shit, they half-ass investigated and then they don't come up with any results. And it's like, you know what the hell's going on. But I say black people fucking, this is the reason why we have fucked up gun rights in the first place. Like when Black Panthers were marching around here with rifles and shit, that's why they passed gun laws. But if you want to be an American, it's your American right to fucking own a gun. So be an American, go get a gun, and walk around like these white people that march in the city hall and shit, and want to protest their freedom to not wear masks. But like, you better hold your own on not wanting to be killed by the police, in which your tax dollars pay for. But that's that.
I agree.
Yeah, man.
I'm trying to look up the names of the gentlemen's or the people that were hung, because I had a conversation with one of my buddies, and he actually did some research for himself. And there was an incident that actually happened here in Texas where a gentleman was shot and killed by the police officers in their house. He just ran up in their house and shot them. Well, there was a witness. Okay, there was a witness that did see it. Most of the time in racial acts, there's usually some kind of reparations in some way. However, that's going through the civil court. Well, 9 times out of 10, a lot of the people that were supposed to be represented, as far as those witnesses that do go into the civil court, are the ones who are being hung, are the ones who are being killed, are the ones who are going in. So he actually did research on one, and he was able to back it up with information. I had a conversation with him. So I want to look up the names and see if is that a possibility? I'm not going to say that it is, but I'm just kind of curious to see if these are linking into anything, just because it's just, why would that happen? Like, a lot of the leaders, people don't know, after Trayvon Martin died, a lot of the African American, I forgot the leader of the name in Ferguson there, in Missouri, he was actually killed.
There's a lot of activists starting to show up missing. There was that girl, which I was going to touch on as well. It does kind of lead into like the J. Cole versus No Name, but I'll let you go ahead and finish.
Yeah, that's all I was saying. That's all I was saying. Like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, continue.
One of those Ferguson activists got lynched, and then they tried to say that shit was a suicide, and he was hanging in the tree like in his backyard or whatever. Not in his backyard, but in somebody's backyard. And like, what's these people's name?
This stuff's not disclosed.
Last year, 2 years ago, Elise Ramon Smith and Jerron County Moreland of Moore, Oklahoma, were lynched by 4 white people in April 2018, a crime that was largely ignored by the media, which all these are ignored by the media, because it's like, you see all the shit going on now, like, on top of the public officials for safety killing us, we got white people returning to lynchings and stuff. And then also this year, the Senate just now decided to call lynching a hate crime, and that shit's been going on for like 400 years, and it's an obvious hate crime. But it's just a part for the course of being black. Like, you're born into a society that literally wanted you to be property and wanted you relegated back to property and or free labor or cheap labor, and wants to keep you in that state. And there's no light switch. There's one thing you learn in history class all over the place. If you're in school, there's no off switch. There's like, they try to teach, they're like, oh, we're racist up till this point, and then we fucking turned it off. And it's like, no, there's been a constant battle. There's been black intellectuals all the time constantly battling and chiseling away at this shit, and we're trying to completely do away with it now. But this is called white supremacy. It's fought on all fronts, and there's no off switch to just cut it off. Like, you have to battle it at every front.
It's just sad that this stuff is ignored. This stuff is ignored. It is ignored. It's not talked about. So, it's just concerning. This is crazy. When I had that conversation, I looked into it. I was like, this is bonkers. Like, and nobody says anything.
Yeah, bro, it's terrible, and it leads right into like our kind of the debate that's happened with J. Cole and No Name. And for anybody that doesn't know, everybody knows pretty much J. Cole. Cole is back, the real is back. So J. Cole made a song called "Snow on the Bluff." "Snow on the Bluff" is reference to a Netflix special that came out years ago that was a hyper real reality. So basically, it seemed like it was real, but it wasn't, about a crack drug dealer in the hood of Atlanta. And so basically with the song, he was referencing a rapper named No Name. She's a Chicago-based rapper. She's very, very big on Twitter. She's an activist. She's very outspoken and very educated in matters of civil rights. And I guess with some of her tweets, it set some people off because she called upon like different celebrities to use their platforms. And then I guess J. Cole took it upon himself to respond with the song Snow on the Bluff. And, I heard the song. I thought he made good points. Basically, he was just saying, like, we're all kind of on the same page. And if you have more insight about a particular subject, that you should teach others to kind of understand, because not everybody's going to be woke, quote unquote, to understand everything that's going on. So I definitely felt where he was coming from that. And then No Name responded. No Name responded with a song called Song 33. And was produced by Madlib. Madlib is a very famous producer in the hip hop community. And man, she came with that fire. She responded back to J. Cole, I think, in the best manner she could, because obviously there was a big debate on Twitter saying J. Cole was misogynistic and he was condemning her tone, which there's always been that kind of debate between Black men and Black women where it comes to like the angry Black woman and da-da-da-da. Then basically there's that big dynamic and beef that goes on between Black men and Black women. So for that, kind of started a freaking shit fire on Twitter, and everybody was just had an uproar. But No Name, she responded, and she kept the context on the actual movement of Black Lives Matter, and she brought up the subject of her name. I do apologize if I butcher, is Oluwatoyin Salu, and she was the activist in Florida, in Tallahassee, Florida, 19, that came up missing. She was very active, very, very vocal in her community.
She was killed by a Black man.
And that's what's messed up about it. Exactly. And
but nobody wants to get involved in these dumbass rapper beefs. Like these motherfuckers, they got mad at Jake. This whole shit started because motherfuckers was mad at J. Cole and Kendrick because they're like, oh, why aren't they speaking up about this? Why aren't they saying anything yet? And it's like, oh, have you not been listening to them for the past 6 years or so? Because
J. Cole been at protests too, though. By the way,
huh? What'd you say?
J. Cole's been at protests too. Like,
well, yeah, but like they want him to say some grand gesture and shit like that, and he's actually out here in the protests and stuff. And then on top of that, they've been speaking to things like this for the past 6 years within their art. So, and like he addressed it in his song, I think. Like I don't remember the bars exactly, but like you want him to say something that appeases you. And then like you were talking about, like with the Black men and Black women in American communities, and like they always want shit done like their way, or if not, you're not doing it good enough, or you're not doing it right. And it's like you just completely disregarded everything he's done before, and you wanted him to speak up like in the midst, like we're in the heat of this whole movement and stuff. And like Dave Chappelle in his special touched on that, because everybody was like, oh, like aren't you gonna get on CNN and say some stuff? And he was like, hell no, like I'm Dave Chappelle, the comedian. Like it's J. Cole the rapper. Like this is a serious social movement. Like this is the streets talking. Like as Dave Chappelle said, like, no, I'm gonna stand by and like offer my support, but I'm not gonna say anything and take attention off of the movement and put it on myself. But like it's great for No Name. Like we're talking about her and shit like that.
But do you think J. Cole like unintentionally took the spotlight off the movement by him addressing that?
No, because I think this is some dumbass rapper beef. They're still rappers. They got music to push and sell and promote. And like this is some little slap on the wrist beef they had between each other because she didn't like the way he addressed her or whatever, or he's the one that went at her first. She didn't say anything to him. She didn't say his name at all. Like he just felt. Well, yeah, but it came from like the post, because I think I was reading an article and they were like, oh yeah, on Twitter they're talking about how like J. Cole and Kendrick aren't saying anything to the effect of these protests and stuff like that. And it's like, well, what the fuck do you want them to say? Like they're millionaires now off of music, and like in J. Cole's sense, you see him out here among the people. He was out here during the Ferguson protests. walking among the people.
Facts.
He was out here when Barack Obama was in the White House, like going to the White House when all the other rappers are going there just to take pictures and shit. He's like in there asking people questions and stuff like that. But it's like you want him to do what you want him to do, which he addressed that in his song. And if you don't like that, like you tear him down. Like Lil Duval posted something about that too, because like he was like, "Oh, J. Cole basically said what y'all are getting mad at him about, but you still don't like the way he said it." But
Right.
and then like on policing black women's voices and stuff, because she No ID, not No ID, what's it? No Name did it like she responded musically, which is great, and she like played on the policing of women's voices and stuff by like lowering her tone and singing, talking about these heavy topics and stuff, because like missing black women and stuff like that. Like there's like 4,000 missing black women, but she had it in like a hermetically sound like tone, and it sounded pleasant, and it was light. You could it's palatable.
Yep.
I thought it was great.
I thought it was cold. Like that was the only way she could respond, because
she finessed it very well.
It would have been like, oh, J. Cole was right about it. You know what I mean? It's like I don't think
it's an artist beef. That's
what
happening.
It was. But my thing is also brings up this point: how great Twitter can be and how toxic Twitter can be. Because that got blown out of proportion because of Twitter. Because she didn't even originally say anything at J. Cole, but people start talking. Then J. Cole's probably like, "Dang, is she talking about me?" He made his song, and they're like, "Oh, J. Cole responded. No Name is going off of you." And then No Name's like, "You know what? Let's just end this right here. Like, I'm gonna shift it back to what the topic is at hand." And I'm glad J. Cole was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna repost her song and just leave it at that."
And really, I just wish they had a communicate like a conversation and just communicate it.
True.
That's all they really had to do. And I think that actually would have been a powerful conversation, and that would have probably inspired a lot of people. So, I mean, like I said, like it just goes back to conversations. Like if you got a problem, converse, talk. If you disagree, talk about it. Like this is where it's going to be at from here on out. If we want change and understanding, people need to listen. And so do black people. We got to listen too.
True.
Nah, because they could have had a conversation, because even No Name was like, "Oh, I was just in the studio with you," or blah, blah, blah. But the music manager in me, this is great for them, because their names are in the media.
What do you think? J. Cole's music manager was like, "Bro, you need to make this song." J. Cole was like, "Man, I'm about to do this."
Like this is an artist. This was an artist beef, a misunderstanding, like you said, from Twitter, and they handled it artistically. But like the music manager in you is just like, "Oh, cool," because your name's fucking in the search logs. But like, great job, guys. Like nobody's getting shot at over this beef. It is a little internet beef, but and then you're talking about like these deep issues, so you're bringing that into the context.
You're relevant.
Yeah, it's like I love it. Keep it going, guys. I'm over here making problematic tweets right now. Like,
don't be mad at me. Thank me later.
Yes, exactly. But it's the media tricks, like we were talking about earlier with the whole everybody jumping on Black Lives Matter and shit. And it's like, oh, if you could attach the shit that you do to this and stay relevant, because that's the whole game, then you're in there. But
in there like swimwear. Man, bro. We are about to be in July, and we may go a whole year without sports. Like, what is going on with the sports? We got college football coming up. What are they? Are we gonna have a season?
Hold on. This is I didn't add this shit into the.
Just go ahead and speak on it. It's all good.
All right, let's just run it down. Let's run it down right now.
Well, why are you doing that?
All right. Hold on here. All right, so everybody, sports is canceled so far as we know, but Major League Baseball announced today, like, hey, we're going to try to play the season. Then you got NBA, like, oh, all the NBA players go to Disney, wear these super rings, and we're going to try to play the season. So now football, the biggest sport, like in terms of fans and also in terms of participation, like the average team is fucking 65 to 95 players. And they all got to be interacting with each other. You're tackling each other and shit. Then you go home to your family. So start multiplying that on how bad this shit could go. You got training staff and everybody. There's a lot of interaction. So 4 days after Texas began voluntary summer workouts, the University of Texas announced that 13 of its football players tested positive for COVID-19. That's one team. Oh, and by the way, side note, Hard Knocks on HBO that follows around the football teams. They're going to do a special this year and be in LA following the Chargers and the Rams at the same time. So like that shit's about to be lit. So then we moved to the national championship, Clemson. Clemson announced 28 student athletes tested positive for COVID-19. In all, 23 Clemson football players have tested positive for 2019, and on it goes. Reported by Adam Schefter. UCLA football players seek third-party health oversight. 30 current UCLA football players and one former player signed a document to demand their health and safety is protected as they approach the return on campus, workouts, and eventually practice. So I see somebody at UCLA got, is Diddy's son still there? Somebody got a lawyer or some shit. They were playing with that.
They're like, nope, not
Yeah.
I.
So then we move on. At least 2 Buccaneers players now have tested positive for COVID-19. Per sources earlier this week, one Buccaneers coach tested positive and 2 other assistants were quarantined. And so to add Tampa is a growing list of teams and schools with positive COVID tests as the teams congregate and return. And then on top of that, Zeke just tested positive, and 13 other Texas, like between Houston Texans and Dallas Cowboy players tested positive. So, like we said, this is the biggest team sport. You got 60 to 90 players and their families and all the people they interact with, the hoes they fuck when they leave practice. And you're gonna have a lot of interaction going on here. And they keep on trying to be like, oh, let's start the season anyway. And like hopefully none of these motherfuckers fall into a 4% death rate of this disease. So hopefully none of these motherfuckers fall into that 4% and just die. But I mean, we'll see. They're playing with fire. But
So what's your take? Football this year or no football?
Oh, they're gonna make it happen. That's
off top.
Yeah,
And
I
they're
mean,
gonna make it
what
That's
did
a lot of
revenue?
money.
That's $14 billion in revenue. They're gonna say,
They're gonna find a
"Oh
way.
well."
How do you do that and keep your players safe?
Bro,
So far, they're
y'all
talking about
better-
building special helmets.
I think Nike's building special hazmat suits.
Yeah, they ain't playing games. They're gonna be out there like space guys, spacesuits running around like.
Yo, how funny is that? There's gonna be people lining up to buy
That
those.
would suck so
Lining up
bad.
to buy
Like
those.
I couldn't
Bro,
think about wearing a
wait,
motorcycle
wait,
helmet
what'd you
playing
say,
football.
Caleb? You
I
say,
said
Caleb?
there's gonna be so many people lining up at Foot Locker to buy those, bro. They'll be like, yo, did you see that new fit? Did you see that new fit, bro? Yo, that Chiefs Super Bowl fit.
No, but I
Oh,
hella
man.
saw like the helmet maker. What's the helmet maker? Rydell. They created this football helmet that looks like a damn.
Are they gonna go
Astronaut
non-contact
helmet.
then? You
Hell
think they're
no.
gonna go
No, I know
non-contact?
you're not gonna fuck with the sport. They're gonna make it happen. Listen, the whole reason sports exists is to get niggas out of the government's business. That's why they keep on trying to force this shit. And like
But they're
Kyrie,
literally, we're not playing baseball. They're not about to be
that's
playing
why
basketball.
everybody keeps on elbowing Kyrie and Lou Williams to shut the fuck up and get back to playing these sports, because it gets everybody out of Donald Trump's business and his shenanigans. And Michael Bolton or John Bolton or whatever his name is just released the book talking about they fucked up the impeachment and they should have charged his ass with more crimes and stuff. And then on top of that, Trump just fired a prosecutor in New York for investigating his homies or something like that. And that's the whole reason sports exists. Sports was created in Rome because the Roman government wanted to distract its populace from the goings on in the government, which is the landowners, likely white males. They want you to stay the fuck out of their business, so they keep on doing the shit they do, and you focus on sports and drink beers and care about who has the rushing title.
A public
Feel you, bro.
distraction.
But I honestly don't see sports being played the rest of the year. Just because all the cases are going back up again. I know it's a money thing, but when it comes down to the players, if enough players are like, you know what, screw it, bro. I don't care about my health. Like you said, there's NBA players talking about they'll dock their pay. They don't care. You can't force them to play.
Listen, I just bought some Disney stock today. Them niggas better get out there. No, actually, I want them to not go out there because I want Disney stock price to fall a little bit.
Look at
further
it's like,
so I can buy
actually,
some
go
more.
ahead, don't show
I
up,
wanna
and I'm going to
scrape
buy
some
some more
more.
stock.
Yeah, I just bought some more Disney stock, and it was down like 23% or some shit like that. So like they keep on talking about, oh, let's not play. I'm shit. I'm finna put more money in there, and then when it shoots back up again and they start playing, I'm gonna be good. But
I mean, they're gonna have to
That's the
figure
situation.
something out, bro. Because football season, like they're about to start training camp, and players are already starting to test positive. I mean, like they're gonna have to come out with that suit real quick because it's like you're tackling people. You
Bro,
get a
they
cut,
will.
all types of stuff.
I mean, you
like,
saw
you're
the NBA
breathing on
shit with
people.
these super rings. They were gonna give every player that's supposed to detect symptoms like 3 days in advance of anything else. But it's like I can see some
But as a
intellectual,
fan, do you want to
intellectual
watch that?
players like.
But do you want
I-
to watch that as a fan? Like if LeBron James or some big time player it can't play because they got coronavirus, nobody's gonna be like, man, I don't want to watch this. Like half the
Yeah.
players are not even playing. It's trash.
I don't want to watch this shit, period, because it's like you already fucked up the whole sanctity of the whole process.
Know what I mean?
Just say, oh, just put an asterisk next to 2020 on all sports records. Be like, yo, that shit happened.
And we didn't even like everything's so big right now. We forgot the Olympics just got completely just like canceled.
And that makes sense because the Olympics, you literally take the whole world and shove them niggas into a couple arenas. And it's like, no, just put an asterisk next to it, 2020. Everybody who is studying history will know, like, oh, okay, like that happened.
Yeah.
It's not the first time some shit like this has happened. Like, damn, they act like motherfuckers can't look around and read the room and take in the context of the world. And that's like what Kyrie Williams is talking about and Lou Williams. And Kyrie Irving and Lou Williams is talking about right now because they're like, yo, we keep on trying to shove sports down people's throats and get sports back going to get them off of these important issues, like not just the Black Lives Matter issues, but we need to fix government. There's been a right-wing utilitarian takeover, not just here in America, but everywhere across the world is right-wing. Like if you look at the Philippines, if you look at Venezuela, right-wing. If you look at Brexit in England, right-wing takeover. Like there's major issues going on right now in the world, and sports is a distraction.
100%. And that's what I'm like, if it really, like I said, and that's what I think, honestly, like they also they want sports, not only is it a distraction, but if they see, we as a viewer see like our idols, people we look up to stand up, be like, you know what, we're not going to play. That's going to motivate more people. Like, you know what, I could do this too. Like, you know what, we're not going to take it.
Well, have you guys watched, have you guys on Showtime on Hulu, have you guys watched Shut Up and Dribble?
No, I actually I watched like one episode of that. You talking about the one with LeBron James, like the documentary?
Yeah, I think he executive produced it.
Yeah.
Like that,
I didn't see it.
But yeah, watch that shit and you'll realize like, oh, these major figureheads, these sports people who, like you said, people look up to, people want to be them, kids idolize them. You go outside all day. These motherfuckers start talking about political issues, going back to Muhammad Ali, to Jack Johnson. Like they started a whole law for prostitution because Jack Johnson was fucking white girls, taking them across state. Then they made that shit illegal. Muhammad Ali changed his name to Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. And then he like changed his religion. They try to conscribe him into the military and send him to go kill Vietnamese people. And he was like, why would I go do that? And y'all killing black people over here. Athletes have always been the major driver of like political changes and stuff because like you said, like it was used as a distraction, but so many people of all walks of life like idolize these athletes and respect them for their opinions mostly, even though people say shit like shut up and dribble to them or just be an athlete, even though they're an actual person. Like they pay taxes too, they got lives, they own houses and shit too. Like they go vote, some of them, like but there's going to take more outspoken athletes, and that's what's been happening. Like LeBron, he's been outspoken his whole career, like trying to hold shit down. And then like you got people like Kyrie saying, even though he says dumbass flat earth shit, I think as a joke, but like you got people like Kyrie that say, and Lou Williams that say like sports is a distraction, and like they're sports figures. So like who would know best than them?
I think the NBA is starting to realize though that it's a player's market. Mark Cuban was in an interview and he was asked, would he be okay if his players stopped playing and took the season off? And he's like, yeah, of course, because this is more of an important issue. I feel like they understand that it's you know what I mean. The players have the control, and hopefully the players understand that, because if they just stop, they're not gonna do shit to them.
Nah,
It's
NBA.
like a union.
We're waiting for the NFL to get their shit together like that. But like you
Yeah.
said, NBA,
Bro, the
NBA
NFL
has,
is the NFL is a different animal. I feel
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
gonna continue, bro.
Yeah.
well, the NFL is a different animal because the contracts aren't guaranteed. So the niggas fall in line because like, oh, my money, I already got to jump through hoops to get my money now, and then on top of that, look, I could get blackballed out of this shit, and these owners could kick me out of the league. But like
Yeah.
going back to your point, like the NBA realized it's a players' league. They realized that shit in like 2010 when LeBron was essentially recruiting players himself to go to Miami. Like he asked
Yep.
D Wade was like, yo, come down here with me. Like they completely cut out the front office involvement in that shit, and they constructed a team together, and they were like getting Ray Allen and like other players to come join
Chris
them in
Bosh.
Miami. And then that's when the NBA realized like, oh shit, like this is a player driven league. Like that's why they backed off on the whole dress code shit and like let Westbrook be fashionable
It
again.
even started before that, bro. The NBA has been progressive. Like when Michael Jordan, like if you haven't watched The Last Dance documentary, definitely check that out. Like that was kind of like the catapult for the NBA, because like Michael Jordan's like he put the NBA on the map. So then they're like,
Bro,
if we got a big time player front of the league, while we know in the NFL it's all about the brand, the NFL brand. No players bigger than
Well,
the
yeah,
brand.
even that's being broken. Like I think what's his name? Roger Goodell. He like scrambled to get behind this whole Black Lives Matter messaging when he saw that Pat Mahomes was added into the video of all the prominent
Yup.
black athletes that were talking about, oh, I'm a black man and like I stand behind these issues and stuff. And he wasn't gonna say shit until he saw the face of the Madden 2020 cover, the MVP, the Super Bowl winning quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, when he popped up in the video and was like, oh, like I'm a black man and like these issues like I care for and they affect me somehow. And like then he had to scramble to make a statement and save face and be like, oh, well, weren't you guys just you guys just blackballed Kaepernick out of the whole league and try to reform his narrative after he said it wasn't about the military or the flag, it was about police brutality. And now they're like, oh, we apologize for not standing behind our players then. And then not just him, like Eric Reed and that wide receiver that was down in Miami that like did the same things. But
So
it's
let me
about
ask you that, like, so did they? I think I was like reading an article. So what's happening with Kaepernick? Like he can go back now?
listen, they blackballed him from the league. And then on top of that, they had a
No, I mean, what happened now? Like I think like he's
no,
able
look,
to.
I'm gonna get to that. They blackballed him from the league. On top of that, they had a court case and they had a settlement. So we don't know the court documents are sealed.
Couple
We don't
$100
know
million,
what kind of-
yeah.
We don't know what kind of NDAs or shit that were
Oh,
signed in that.
I'm sure.
And
he
then
got
on
a couple
top of
$100
that,
million.
he's a quarterback and he's
Yeah.
been blackballed for 4 years. So he's like 33 or 34 years old now. And there's few teams, like even Cam Newton, who was an MVP in the Super Bowl. He played in the Super Bowl. Cam Newton's a free agent. So like there's the quarterback market is wide open. Like I don't understand how Joe Flacco could get signed on the team before Cam Newton and Kaepernick, or why Mitch Trubisky is still a quarterback and you have Cam
Facts.
Newton and Kaepernick out there. And anybody who knows football, like it doesn't make sense. But on the business side of it, because like Kaepernick's not going to take chump change, and like that's what he's saying. Like you're not going to pay him like some fucking quarterback off the street. Like he played in
But
the Super
should
Bowl
you though?
too.
But like he hasn't played for 4 years. Like if you're an owner, aside from the movement, do you pay him all that money and he hasn't even played for 4 years?
You don't pay him like
I would.
superstar money, but you pay him decent veteran money. Like he's a veteran quarterback that's been to a Super Bowl. Like you don't slap on top of all the slaps in the face he's gotten, you don't slap him in the face again, like on the money aspect. And then on top of that, like he's not the first player to be blackballed like that. Like they actively did it to Josh Gordon over some marijuana. And then now marijuana is legal in all these states and shit. And then they're starting to look at marijuana again because it's better to be smoking weed than to be drugged up on opioids and shit. They blackballed Josh Gordon for failing marijuana tests. They did that shit to Ricky Williams twice. If Ricky Williams would have never got suspended from the NFL, he would statistically be the best running back ever. But like and then on top of that, they took like $13 million from him. And then like we had Michael Vick, who's a quarterback, who's an example of a quarterback. He spent time in the penitentiary for like 2 years.
They took everything from him.
And then he came back and he
everything.
balled. Now, if you remember, he came back to to the Philadelphia Eagles and he balled out. And everybody was like, "Oh shit!"
But his contract was garbage. Do you remember? Like they wouldn't give him anything, man.
Yeah,
like
that's like I was saying with the Denzel, like that's an owner's ploy. That's how the Patriots are good every year because they get these players who got in trouble and shit or just need a last chance, and they throw them some chump change because the only people who were getting paid was like Tom Brady, the offensive lineman.
I think he got $1 million. I think that was his contract. You know, like $1 million. So that means he netted like $350,000, bro.
Well, also his financial advisor because he had to pay back. Because Michael Vick before he got arrested, he got signed to like the greatest quarterback contract ever. It was like 7 years, $120 million. And then on top of that, he had like Nike endorsements and shit like that. But when he got arrested, they figured out some legal loopholes and shit and made him pay it back. And then on top of that, if you ever watched like the Michael Vick documentary, he said he went out and got a financial advisor that put him on a budget of like $250,000 a year. So he wasn't even trying to spend all that money. Like it's a complicated process. And like you're talking about, the NFL is a different animal, especially when it comes to money and shit. Because you got to pay taxes in every state you play in. You got to pay your agent if you have an agent, unless you're smart
5%.
like Lamar. Because Lamar was like they're trying to be smart asses. ESPN commentators were like trying to be smart asses when Lamar was getting drafted. Like, oh, why don't you have an agent? Blah blah blah. And he was like, I went to college. I know how to read. Like, why would I pay somebody to read my contracts for me? Like, and they try to make a big deal out of that shit. But that's a changing narrative too, because Kyler Murray, he negotiated his contract and all that shit's guaranteed. So like players are starting to get smart in their contract negotiations with the NFL. And like it should be guaranteed money. Like it's the only professional sport where like the money on your contract isn't guaranteed, and you have all these loopholes and stipulations and shit. But that's that.
Yeah, I'm kind of answer that, Caleb. I mean, he's a free agent. I mean, teams are looking at him. They're talking about the Chargers.
No, I got that part. I was asking like what happened in the sense of like I think was it San Diego? Like some
of the Los Angeles Chargers.
Or the Chargers, okay. The Chargers are wanting him back now.
Possibly.
They're giving him that's what I was talking about. So I think there's like, okay, so I mean,
like
why would he play? You know what I mean? Like, he's gotten a couple $100 million.
Yeah, they got teams looking at him, but like what Rob was saying is like it should be beyond that. Like he should be signed already, especially when there's like a bunch of trash quarterbacks that shouldn't be starting.
No, I agree. He's being blackballed.
Yeah, but I mean, now with the movement, they're all like, "Oh, Jim Harbaugh, Roger Goodell," they're all hopping on him. Even the 49ers.
But the blackballing's already been successful because, like he's 34 years old now.
He's 32. Like, he's 32. Bro.
He's 32.
But still,
yeah. I mean, Tom Brady's playing until he's 40, and he is a mobile quarterback. So, like, I can see him coming back. But like I was telling other people, like, why would you even want to risk this man's health? Like, he's obviously been paid off for his settlement with the NFL. And then, like, you have tons of white offensive linemen in the NFL, and there's some country motherfuckers. So, like, it would be like a reverse Drew Brees situation. Because I already feel like if they do play a season this year, Drew Brees is getting fucking hurt. Because there's been hella defenders that I seen on Twitter and shit. Like, oh, yeah, I don't give a fuck what he said. Like, I'm knocking that nigga out every chance he get. I seen people playing Madden and shit talking about they almost broke their controllers trying to hit stick Drew Brees. Like, why would you even want to risk his health like that? Like, he has his health. He's an activist now. I get the whole principle of it.
Whatever fuel I got, you getting it. Like, and defense, like, nothing personal, but it's personal.
I'm saying when they talk about in practice, don't hit the quarterback. Fuck that.
What time?
He's gonna take a few licks.
Wake up
He's gonna take a few licks. I think he understands that.
No, I mean as an opponent, I definitely would be feeling ready to go. Like,
Bro, he
You
had
getting
Jamal
one?
Adams. Jamal Adams literally tweeted, it was like, "Oh yeah, like I'm coming for Drew Brees ass." And like I'm watching Jamal Adams highlights. I'm tweeting the Chiefs to go trade for him because he requested the trade from the Jets
Dang.
and shit. And I'm like, yo,
He's
if
still
we get
he's
him and
gonna want too
Tyron,
much money though, bro.
no, it's not going to the Chiefs.
no, because he said the Chiefs are on his list for one of the few teams that he'll allow himself to be traded to and not restructure his contract. Because I think he has like a year or two left on his contract. So like if the Chiefs
They won't be ready for that though, bro. We
Who would
tied.
they
bro.
trade though?
huh?
We're
Like, how would that
tied
trade
down.
go down if you went to the
Well,
Chiefs?
exactly. That's
I don't
just
know.
the throwing up in the air for it.
But if he comes great,
anybody
excellent.
who knows constructing a defense and shit, how nasty it'd be to have Jamal Adams and Tyrann Mathieu roaming around your backfield, and then on top of that, you got Frank Clark and Chris Jones, and
Rashad Braylon over there.
yeah, and Rashad Breeland, and
He's a dog.
we're getting Thornton back from his knee injury. Like,
The Chiefs is ready to go.
yeah,
Alex Okafor, they got a squad, bro. They got a D line. Like the D line's
Hopefully it's the season, guys.
We'll see, bro.
Bro, I know it's football looking
it
team.
is
But if
kind of
not,
fucked
I'm
up that
cool.
after
Hey.
the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, the world falls apart.
It's crazy, bro. So right, we'll see. Like we're gonna keep having these podcasts, and we'll see. Like it's only a month away. We're gonna see.
Yeah,
where
it's
the
not too
season's
far
at,
away.
or it might be
It's only
delayed.
a month away.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
a month away. We're gonna see.
I'm so
Wait, what day does
excited.
it start? What day does it start? Or would it
Like they're
start?
about to start training camp, bro.
Damn.
Yeah, it's coming up. That's why I was like, this is
Yeah.
a problem.
So is college football gonna go? Y'all think?
I don't. That's what I'm saying, bro. I
Is
don't
high
know,
school?
bro.
Is high school sports gonna go?
No, hell no. Hell
They're talking
no. High
about
school's
the
done.
kids having to have like they're thinking of different ways for kids to go to school, and they're talking about like every other desk. So like maybe like 3 days out of the week, half the population of the school goes, and the other half, bro. They're thinking of all these scenarios, bro. It's wild,
Bro, I
bro.
think-
This COVID-19 thing is gonna be a problem for a little longer than a lot of people are
Might as well
expecting.
call
Bro.
it
Yeah.
COVID-20 now.
I
A
think
whole
here
new norm, yeah.
in Kansas, like Shawnee Mission, Blue Valley, and things are closed next semester.
See
That's-
what I'm
that's-
So
saying?
the fall
Yeah.
semester shut down.
I'm pretty sure.
Or they're
they're
gonna have to
shut.
go like
Yeah, it's
all
online, it's
digital, bro.
online.
Like they can't have people around,
It's
like
all
especially
online.
like small places. Like it's gonna be a
Bro, 'cause-
problem.
Because this is what I'm seeing. Like I like schools. It's cheaper to operate a Zoom call than to operate a building. You know what I mean? So I feel like education is going to go to an online platform. There's been so many. There's so many people that don't even like do the traditional area route for their kids. You know what I mean? Whether it's like they're using Kumon or they're using
That's why Zoom and Skype and DocuSign. As I said, I was looking at the stocks earlier. Fucking DocuSign is up 225%. Like I wish I used DocuSign like hella last year. I wish I would have just glanced at their stock price back then and fucking bought that shit. But
Who would have known? Who
Yeah.
would've known?
But like now, like Caleb said, like it's cheaper. I don't know if y'all Nancy Pelosi fucking burned Trump's ass yesterday because Trump had his rally the day after Juneteenth in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And all sorts of social activists and young people, especially the people on TikTok and shit, ruined it
Hey.
because they were scooping up the tickets and stuff. And so like the crowd was embarrassingly low. I think they said it was something like 6,500 people there, but it just looked like a fucking trash ass event. And Nancy Pelosi was like, yo, that could have just been a Zoom call instead of a rally. And like
That's hilarious.
Trump's
Nancy,
all
she down
embarrassed
with the
about, you
cause.
know how he's obsessed with crowd sizes and shit. So he's all
Yeah.
embarrassed about that shit.
It was huge. It was the largest crowd.
Like nigga, we're looking at the pictures. We're looking at the pictures. You keep telling me it's huge, and I see all these empty ass seats up top. But
Bro,
you're Mr.
historical.
Sellout.
Yeah. Speaking of, there's a show on Hulu, guys. You guys got to check out. Let me pull it up. It's called Watchmen. You guys know the
That's
show?
in that.
Yeah, it's on HBO, bro.
Yeah,
It's on
I've seen
HBO. Yeah, but
Yeah,
got-
I
it
started
got
watching it last night, bro. The first episode was fire. It
Oh,
starts
it's amazing.
off with the Tulsa riots or the Black Wall Street massacre, bro. Everybody
Yeah.
should be watching that show. I'm about to watch another episode after this call.
Oh, it's
Listen,
amazing.
I already watched it, so I don't want to spoil anything for y'all.
Look, he's like, more's gonna come.
Except it got canceled. because there's black people in there and they're talking about serious issues and shit.
They
As you'll
canceled
see-
it
Yep, they canceled
after
it
first season.
because you'll see black dick in there, and you know that rubs white people the wrong way. That's just on one spoiler to you. You're gonna see a big ass. It's blue. It's Mr. Manhattan. It's Dr. Manhattan's dick, but you're gonna see it, and that rubbed white people the wrong way. And then on top of that, they're talking about Tulsa Race Massacre and shit like that, and talking about racism. And then they got the KKK running through there. So that shit got canceled, of course, for other reasons. But
That
that's
reminds me
really
of
the
that.
reason.
If you guys ever watch American Gods, Orlando Bloom's character Nancy,
Canceled.
they canceled, bro. I'm not watching it. I stopped watching the show. Like I was big in that show, and they fired him off the show because of the message.
Yeah, the dude tried to say it sent the wrong message to black Americans. And it's like, nigga, you're not a black American. Like, what the fuck are you
It was
talking about?
wild, bro.
But
I was like,
that's almost as egregious as back in 2014 when football leagues and shit try to pass the rule that you can't say nigga on the field. And I know me personally, I was saying nigga twice full after they said that shit. Like I dare some white people to try to police me on what if I could say nigga to like people in my own culture and shit like that.
right.
And I think that shit only lasted for like a week or two before they realized like, hey, we can't just keep throwing penalties because players are saying the N-word or because you perceive them as saying the N-word because like you have hella white refs. I think there was only like 15% refs of color. So it's like that shit didn't last. But you have white people trying to police the culture and the community and like that shit won't fly. But there's always going to be a edge of agitation in there. But yeah,
Definitely.
going back to these characters and stuff, yeah, they canceled that shit because
Yeah. Well,
You're-
I'm
you're
still gonna
bringing-
watch it.
yeah,
I'm gonna check
bro,
it out.
watch it with attentive eyes and catch everything. That's all I'm
Yeah.
gonna say.
So
But,
we gotta
like-
get ready to wrap this up. Go ahead, Caleb. You got something to say? Or
What I was gonna say is a lot of the things that you'll see in that show, they exist in current time. It's just in a different, you know what I mean? But like, I don't know.
like an alternate reality?
Yeah, man. Like,
Mm.
like the KKK is still big, man. They're still big. They're still a huge organization. You know, they just rebranded. You know what I mean? They're not wearing what is it called? Like the little hats. I don't know what they're called. The capes.
No, they do that shit in private.
In private,
they get
yeah.
together. But
Yeah.
like it's so big, like you said, it's so big that even the FBI, because they've been investigating it. I don't know why, because there's KKK members in the FBI too, but they won't even admit to like how entrenched their investigations go, because they had to investigate the DEA, they had to investigate the White House, their own selves, the FBI, each police station across the country, and then on top of that, the military forces from the Navy, the Air Force, all the special JSOC operations and shit like that. And they realized like, oh, the KKK is embedded, and not just that, like they're embedded in hospitals and then in education. Like it's a serious problem. They couldn't even address it. Like they didn't even release the info of what they found, and they've been doing this investigation for like 4 years. But yeah, like
Yeah.
Caleb said, they're still around. I think
They're
they're called the
everywhere,
Eye in the Watchmen. What are they called? The Eye.
Something like that, or I can't think of it. It
Yeah,
starts
it's
with
like
a
that.
C. But yeah, no. Yeah, it's crazy shit.
Definitely. Anybody, as we wrap it up, anybody got any final thoughts, words you want to say? Dre, you want to say something?
I don't really have anything. I thought it was a great conversation, guys. Anybody tuning in and listening, I appreciate you guys here to join us in this conversation.
Facts. The dad himself, Caleb, doing dual duty.
Yo, well, I was actually related to that, so I'm gonna ask you guys a question to end it off. So how
Wait, Caleb,
you
that's your
talk-
son?
Yeah.
Congrats!
You
bro.
got a
I didn't-
random baby.
I didn't know you had a new addition.
Yeah, man. Right here. His name is Ethan.
That's what's up, Ethan. When was
Yeah.
Ethan born?
6'10". So like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, man.
Congrats!
We're
bro. I didn't
having
even
these
know you had
quarantine
a-
babies.
I didn't even know you had a new one on the way. I didn't know you. And it's here. He's here. Like I didn't even know.
He's here, man.
Oh
He's
yeah,
he's
Caleb,
eating.
how was that the birthing process during the quarantine?
So okay, initially, like I remember like in February or so when we're like talking to them, And it was like they told us everything's gonna be strict, like once you're in, you can't leave, blah blah. But then it wasn't that case. Like we got there, obviously Cindy's gonna be in there. She was admitted, but for me it was like every day you have to get your temperature read, and then they give you a sticker of whatever day it is, So 6:10, the next day 6:11, etc. And that's pretty much it. And you have to wear a mask. You have to wear a mask. They like make you sanitize. But I mean, it wasn't bad. I think it was like kind of lax. But the hospitals, like, I mean, they're pretty empty. A family friend of ours, he's the director of KU Med and the neurology department. And so I was having a conversation with him, like, and so it's like the hospitals, like, like for KU Med, they went from seeing or having a traffic of 15,000 people a day to about 150. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, like hospitals have taken a huge hit in this anticipation of this virus to break out, et cetera, but nothing happened. So I mean, they're losing money. I think KU Med lost about 250 million. And I can't imagine what other hospitals lost. And so, but I mean, my experience was it was cool, man. We were there for just one day. It was a regular birth. We were
in
there
and out.
Yeah, man. It was like a drive-through.
That admittance process is literally what they
Yeah.
do to get into my gym.
Yeah, bro. I mean, for real though. All they're just like,
Drop the baby.
nah. I got him.
Oh, look his head. The baby's head.
He held his own head.
You're over here. Caleb, he's 2 weeks old.
I know, but
You
my
gotta
babies
have
are
a strong neck
man.
like me.
My babies are strong, bro.
You got
Yeah,
this,
he's-
son.
He was born. Look at him. He's passed out. He's passed out, bro.
What's
Look at my
good?
baby.
That boy been eating good.
Eat that.
I like tell him just like, oh, you're never gonna know discrimination. You're gonna be discriminating.
Come
Well, that's not
on.
true. So okay, speaking of that though, how do you guys have a conversation with your kids? Like, what do you tell them? You know what I mean? Because like, yeah, but okay, so how's that conversation? I guess how's that
You gotta
conversation
learn on the
for you,
fly.
Gray?
Everybody,
How's-
you remember when you were a kid? You remember? Well,
just kinda
shit, Caleb,
pick it up.
you're
So-
different, Caleb, because you came over here
Bro,
as like
exactly.
a younger kid. But we remember when you were a kid. No matter what people tell you, it doesn't match up to when you actually experience some shit. Because
Yeah.
you always like, damn, like
I knew
motherfuckers
this,
was
but I
trying to
didn't
tell me
know
about
this.
this. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, like for me, it was like, I don't know, like I came here at 9 and I was telling you guys last time, it was like the whole concept of black people, right? It was just like, bro, like we were told, not my parents, but like the whole, like our community, right? How everybody speaks. This is not just for an Ethiopian communities, but just in foreign community as a whole. Like, hold on one second. Black people are just like, they're like, we're told as like, you don't mess with them, you don't hang out with them, you know what I mean? Like I
but
didn't
like going back
associate
to
myself
what we talked about with JC Nichols, and like that's because we're relegated to an impoverished state, and then like they invited the best of the foreigners over here to run businesses and be a part of like infrastructure. Because you gotta remember, a lot of the intellectual prowess now is like from India and like the Ethiopians and stuff like that, and the foreigners that come over here and become doctors and shit. So like, of course, they tell you not to interact with the impoverished community that we try to use for cheap labor, and then like we applaud all the extraordinary Negroes that claw their way out and be like, oh, thank God, praise Jesus, like he worked so hard, pulled himself up by the bootstraps. Look, all the rest of y'all can do it, but it's like you got to jump through these unnecessary hoops that these regular white kids don't have to. But
that is true. That is true, because I mean, like the way that like a lot of foreigners come in, from India, Ethiopia, other countries like that, is through education, right? That's why like our education system is so you don't understand the focus and the emphasis on education. It's so heavy there, right? When by the time you're in 10th grade, that is the same level of education as somebody that's like 3 to 4 years in college, right? If not more, like like in Ethiopia, you take physics at like the age of 6th grade, right? Chemistry That's 6th or 7th grade. Same with like vector calc, calc 1, calc 2, like all these stuff are like middle school stuff. Here, you don't even like in our high school, you just had to graduate with algebra 2, right? You didn't even have to have anything. And for science, it was like 1 biology and then like environmental science.
It's like intro to biology, intro to physics, intro to chemistry.
Which is complete bullshit. You know what I mean? It's like it makes no sense. Like I look at somebody here, it's like the same kid that's here in the US and a kid that's in Africa or India or in China. They're the same kid, man. They have the same like capabilities. It's just here they dumb it down so that, you know. But long story short, though, to kind of go back to what I was saying, like they like these people and like our people came to the country by it's like the civil rights law that was passed, right? That helped us on the back end because we were CC'd in that, you know. If you can come in for higher education for these specific jobs, doctors, engineers, et cetera, you know. But yeah, I don't know, I kind of lost track of what I was saying. But okay, what do you say to your kids though, Denzel? What do you say? Like, how do you explain to your 2 sons and then you Dre to your daughters? Because it's a different conversation that you have, right?
I mean, obviously,
I guess let me ask you a 2-part question. Now, like, how do you do it now? And then how do you think it's gonna be when he's at the age of
I think it'll still be a conversation.
Driving. Like, how is that conversation? Right. Go ahead.
I think it's the same conversation that my mom had with me. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like, you know, 20 plus years later, we're still having these conversations. I think my kids are still going to have the conversation because it's something that's embedded in society so deep, psychological. It's going to take generations for that to break.
What was that conversation like?
It's just the truth. That's why Black people are so real. That's why people think we're so raw. It's because we experience things at such an early age that a lot of people of other backgrounds, they don't get to, and that might be what the problem is, because we are understanding how the world works because we're going to be judged by the color of our skin. So our parents teach us straight up. It's just truth. Like, hey, people are not going to like you. People are going to say these things or do things, or you're not going to get certain things because of the color of your skin. And my mom was just straight up to me. And I mean,
you're going to be treated like a grown ass man at 10 and 12 years old.
You know what I mean? And it's just, you got to be straight up with them. And, you know, like my kids are still young. As far as what I teach them is like, hey, like, not everybody's going to like you. Just fair as that. Like, not everybody's going to want to be your friend. So you got to get comfortable with that. It's like, that's their loss, not yours. You know?
Okay. What about you?
And then like going up in elementary school here, like that shit, you feel it start to shift because like everybody knows kids learn, like nobody's born racist. You gotta learn that shit. Yeah. Kids are always nice. And like you growing up here in America, like elementary school is hella fun. Cause it's like, yo, if you drive with somebody like on an intellectual level, like y'all are gonna be friends. It's gonna be straight. But then like you'll feel it start to shift. And like I don't know about middle school in Kansas, but middle school in Florida is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And like 7th and 8th grade, you'll feel like that shit start to shift, and like people start clicking up and choosing sides on like where they want to be at, or who they want to interact with, or what they think about those type of people. And like me and Denzel, I remember we're in like honors classes and shit like that, and we'd always go for like the extracurriculars and stuff. And we'd look around and be like, "Oh, we're only 2 niggas in here." Like, yeah. And people would be looking at us like damn, like why are y'all the only 2 black people in here? It's like, shit, you tell me, like why there aren't other black people in here? Like I know there's other smart black kids, but like you tell me why they aren't in here. Like,
no, I agree with you on that. That's crazy. Sure. That is crazy.
Yeah, bro, same. You know, my mom was very straight up and just kind of told me, and she kind of did
say if you remember, like,
yeah, bro. So my mom said it kind of exactly what Denzel's mom said, kind of like, you know, people aren't gonna always like you, like because of your skin, and you got to go, you know, the extra mile for, you know, things that you want. Like it's not set up for your success. So like, she kind of gave me the runaround like that, and then kind of threw it into where she was just like, you know, sticks and stones can break your bones, but words never hurt you. So people are going to come at you and say all kind of things, but you got to let that slide. You know, you got to let that slide. You got to let that go. You can't focus on that. You can't entertain that kind of stuff. And she just kind of prepared me. She just kind of prepared me to not really care about what other people think. And that's kind of what she did. She kind of like built an armor. She's like, hey, you need to be able to hold yourself. Like, you're going to encounter a lot of things that's going to go on, and you got to be able to make good decisions and be able to think. So like she was really big on like decisions and really big on like just kind of like, you know, not really caring about what other people thought. Like that's something that my mom instilled in us. And like kind of that's what I do to my kids now. You know, I teach my kids responsibility of themselves. Like, you know, like control the things that you can, you know what I mean? That's all it's about. And exactly what Denzel said, like people are not gonna like you. And if they don't and they don't want to be your friends, that is their loss. Like, you know, all you need is yourself. Like you don't need anybody else.
My mom instilled in me the classic black American thing that I think every black American should realize and come to grips with. Like literally after the first time I got arrested, like I told y'all, I was 8 and my fucking SWAT team dragged me home like I was some fucking international terrorist. Like them niggas had me like handcuffed and shit. You know, like everybody's my whole day. I lived in an apartment complex, and my neighbors are like hanging out the window and shit. Like, yo, what the fuck? He plays around here all the time. Like, what the fuck did he do? And like the SWAT team took me home because they're like, what apartment do you live in? Because I was like, I live here. Like, what y'all talking about? And they like they knocked on the door. And my mom answered and shit. And after that horror deal blew over, and like I'm 8 at this point.
How long did
like,
it take to blow over? How long did that take? Let me quick.
Well,
question.
I had to go to court, and I had to do like 60 something hours of community service.
No. I mean at home. How long did that take for your mom to not beat your ass every night, bro?
No, my mom didn't even beat my ass.
My mom would have beat my ass every
realized
night.
like because she was like, "What were you doing?" You know, like I was just doing like there's hella kids. This is back when kids used to play outside. Like there used to be like 120 kids deep outside. And I told her what I was doing. I was like, yo, I spray painted the sidewalk, which like, yeah, like my bad.
It's
like,
being bad.
The shit,
like,
the shit
bad.
could come off. Like it could come off. And then I was popping fireworks and it wasn't even nowhere near the 4th of July. So like, so they called the cops and shit on me, and they came out there with like 7 squad cars and fucking tack gear and shit to catch a little 8-year-old black boy. And then so like by that time my mom set me down, and like this shit plays into how I am in sports, how I am in like intellectually, like knowledgeably and everything. She was like, look, you gotta work twice as hard and be twice as better as these white people to even get like half of what they got. And like that shit plays to me in sports and stuff, because like I'm a kind of a heavier set person, and people were always like, oh, you shouldn't be able to do that, you shouldn't be able to do this. Like I'm authoritarian adverse. Like I don't like people telling me what I should and can't do in the first place. So like you'll hear like my college teammates and stuff, they'll be like, oh, like you was always doing speed workouts with like DBs and shit, and people would say like, oh, you're not supposed to be doing that. I would be lifting weights with the linemen because like I'm not supposed to be as strong as them, but I am. I'd always be in like intellectually superior classes with like honors classes and shit, or like I was in like in college, like I was on the diversity committee, and like everybody looks at me like, oh, like you're a fucking hood jock, like where are you I'm sitting on the diversity board, like I have meetings with the president of the university. But you wouldn't expect that if you just looked at me, because like I say, like you beat the optics and I have to work twice as hard, be twice as good, and like I still don't have like what other people would have. But like that's just the reality of the situation. And like I have to beat the optics of what I look like. And then people are always like, oh wow, like you wouldn't expect stuff from me. And like you guys were talking about earlier with sharing your experiences with white people, because I like my girlfriend's half white, and like her family, when I'm with them and stuff, and I tell them some of like the stories of stuff I've been through, and they're in like disbelief. Like, oh, like I couldn't even imagine that. And it's like, damn right, you couldn't imagine that. Like, now imagine that on generations of black people. Like, but that's just the reality of where we're at. And it's gonna take doing stuff like this, sharing stories, opening up conversations, and getting people to shed light on that. And then that's just how we chisel away at this thing. Like I said, there's no off switch for the bad and negative shit that goes on. Like it's a constant battle. That's what progress is. If you understand anything about biology, any system you make suffers from entropy. Entropy is falling apart. It's disarray. If you create a system, it's gonna fall into disarray. The whole point is maintenance and progressing it and constantly moving it forward. That's what we're all trying to do. If you like, you're talking about, if you want to own property, how can people take care of of their communities and stuff. If they own if you own some shit, you'll take care of it. If you don't have anything, or you don't feel like you're worth anything, or you're not contributing to society, it's hard to see yourself as a productive citizen of that. But
That's true. Key is ownership, honestly. They can
taking
own it,
ownership
they
of
can-
yourself, and then you can take ownership of other things, and then
Yeah.
you're off and running. You're trying to fucking dominate shit and progress it to your will. But that's just where we're at as people.
That's interesting. Thank you guys for letting me know, because my parents didn't have those conversations with me. So I had to figure those kind of things out on my own, you know? So I'm like,
I
huh.
remember your weird ass in high school showing up.
I know, bro. I didn't get it. I was like,
You're
I'm not
like,
black.
I was like, Caleb's. You tell your ass got nut tapped by the police officer. You're like, police brutality, and I was like, you don't give a fuck about police brutality against your ass.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Welcome
I
to
didn't-
America, Caleb.
I know.
we'll tell that story some other time. But
I know. It was epic. Love
follow
that guy.
Family Style Podcast. Follow familystyle.pod on Instagram. Hit me up at Rhetorical Rob on Instagram, or if you can find me on Facebook, maybe I'll get on there and reply to you
Said
if I ever
maybe.
get on. Hit us up with questions, comments, anything, stuff you want us to cover or talk about, stories you want us to tell.
Bro, plug your fan only account on there.
My
as well, bro.
OnlyFans.
Yeah,
Fan only.
Black Lives
I don't
Matter
know, bro.
donations.
Welcome to Nasty Rob's OnlyFans. I'm about to start one. Shit, y'all you gonna play it.
Bro,
About
I
to
got you.
Get a following.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's a perfect time to end this note. Well, gentlemen, it's been an honor. Thank you guys for tuning in, and obviously tune in for more Family Style podcasts. And we are out.
Peace.
Hey. Yeah.